I want to take a few minutes to give you a quick introduction to BlackBeltHelp. BlackBeltHelp started by institutions like University of Bridgeport and Wheaton College that were unhappy with the quality of service and cost of Aleutian Help Desk services. Touro College, Brunei University, and College of Lake County that were unhappy with the quality of service and cost of Blackboard student services. Today, BlackBeltHelp is the #1 provider of help desk support, handling over 800,000 interactions per year. We are proud to say that every single one of BlackBeltHelp's clients is referenceable. There is a grant available for the bona fide institutions of higher education and K-12 institutions for the financial aid services from BlackBeltHelp. For those that are interested in the grant, please follow up with me directly. Of course, I'll share my contact details towards the end of this session. And there's also a pricing promo, which is currently available for a limited duration until the end of October. You can see the details on your screen right now. It's totally based on the volumes. And of course, we can get to know more about your specified requirements once we can meet face-to-face or maybe on a one-on-one basis on a web session. At this stage, I'd like to pass on the platform to our featured speaker, Corinne Soltis, former Financial Aid Director, University of Alaska Southeast. So Corinne, over to you.
Hi, welcome everybody. I'm so glad that you're on this call. If you are on the call, it means that you're having some kind of challenge, most likely with your phone system, or you just don't have enough time to meet with your students and do with them what it is that you want to do. Maybe that's more one-on-one counseling. Maybe you want more time to be able to process your documents. Whatever it is, it's brought you to this call today. And what we want to do is share with you a little bit about what BlackBeltHelp does to assist all of the institutions that we work with. So we're going to start with a couple of the typical problem statements that we hear. We hear a lot about long wait times, students having to wait a half an hour after they enter your queue to be able to talk with a financial aid counselor, or a high abandon rate. We can hear upwards of 30% abandoned calls because your students just have to wait so long to be able to talk to someone. We also hear a lot about short staffing, just not enough people, not enough hands on deck to be able to get everything done, let alone return 100 voicemail calls. There's also a lack of 24/7 coverage, especially now that we have students that are from all different time zones. The more we move into online platforms, online classes, the more we have to be able to be available to students that aren't necessarily in our time zone, which makes it difficult when our staff is scheduled to work 8 to 5. So a little bit more about the solutions that we have through BlackBeltHelp. We have reduced the average need to answer calls to less than 60 seconds. So your students, if you partner with BlackBeltHelp, will not be waiting on the phone for half an hour or 20 minutes or even 15. Our pickup time is less than 60 seconds. For them, it's a seamless interaction. I'll get a little bit more into that in a minute. But in a nutshell, very quick response time. We can reduce the abandoned call rate to less than 2%. And I mean, for some of you who have that 30% abandoned call rate, a 2% abandoned call rate is fantastic. That's exactly the direction that we want to move. Our business does offer 24/7 pickup times. So even if your staff has gone home for the evening to be with their families, or you just want to take them offline so that they're not answering phone calls or emails, just so that they can process paperwork, we can pick up the slack on that, either in the evening hours, or we can actually pick it up during your business hours too. We can talk some more about that as we go. We also, because of our cost system, we can shrink your operational costs by up to 40%. So that's kind of a nice thing for those schools that are struggling a little bit with budgetary numbers. And then last but not least, we effectively manage that fall and spring high call volume peaks. Some of you get them right before the fall semester starts. We start getting those large call volumes that pick up in July. That's what we're here to help you and assist you with. So BlackBeltHelp today is 80 clients strong. That means that we work with 80 different schools in a number of different capacities, from financial aid to IT support. We have over 600,000 interactions annually. So that's how many students or staff or parents that we're helping every year. We have the capacity to handle IT, financial aid issues, HR, recruitment, admissions, enrollment, retention. Basically, if there's an office on your campus, we can help coordinate the movement of students from one office to another. And one of the best things about BlackBeltHelp is 100% of our clients today are referenceable, which means if you, after this call, are really excited about BlackBeltHelp and you want a chance to talk with one of our current clients, we can connect you to one of them so that you can get a full reference check for us and all that we've been able to do for that institution. Let's start to look at the overview of what BlackBeltHelp can do. So we have 4 typical modes of support. So we handle call volume, which is mostly what I've been talking about so far. We also can handle email. So students that email, we know that those emails can turn out no longer to be the emails that we're used to from 5 years ago. Now they become more like instant messages. So you send back a response, then the student sends back a response, and then you have to send back, and it just becomes a volley of back and forth activity. And that just eats up the time of your staff, preventing them from being able to do the things that they typically need to do, like process verification documents or counsel those students that really need help figuring out their loan volume, for example. So we can take that email support off of your hands as well, either as a short amount of time, so maybe you only, maybe you're down a front desk person that normally answers your email and you need us to take it for the day. Or maybe you just want us to take all of your email and you'll handle all of the calls or vice versa. We can do that as well. Through our mobile app, we also offer a chat feature, which is very typical of what students are looking for nowadays. They don't necessarily want to pick up the phone. Email's turning a little archaic at this point. Now they really want to just get on a chat feature, fire off a really quick question, get a response, and then if they have a follow-up question, zip it off to your team as well and get something back. That can be really, really hard when you're an institution with 10, 20,000 students all needing some type of question answered, and you're a staff of maybe 12 to 30. That's a lot of interactions that you're having to support, a lot of different directions you're having to move in. And that's one of the ways that BlackBeltHelp can help you. We have over 400 full-time technical and counseling staff that's able to answer all of your students' inquiries. And we have a great training regime, which we'll talk about at the end of this presentation. But I just want to point out one more time that we are definitely available for about 24/7, 365 days a year, help desk support. We can also provide on and off, like switch support. So if you need us for a couple of hours or you need us for a couple of days at a time, we can do that. We also offer after-hour support. So if your business, if all of your staff goes home at 5 o'clock, but you know that your phones are still ringing straight through 9 o'clock, we can pick up those 4 hours worth of time where typically your students are either abandoning or leaving huge number of messages that you have to then pick up at 8 o'clock in the morning and spend your entire day just responding to those emails. So here's a good overview of what we do. So we are a call center support. Again, our modes of support are phone, chat, and email. And we can connect your students to all of these different pieces. So from the financial aid call, if we determine that they need to be connected through to admissions, we can give them some admissions information if that's part of the scope of support that you would like us to provide. We can also give them some registrar information, business office information. We can forward the calls. So I just wanted to show you that we can help be that one-stop phone line to transfer your students to all of these different places. It doesn't just have to be specifically the financial aid section. We can move your students around to the different areas of support that they need within your campus. But let's go backwards a little bit and talk just about the financial aid scope of support. So we are offering right now tier level 1 support. So how do we define tier level 1? So for me, in my 17 years of financial aid experience, 80% of my calls fall in this tier 1 support. They typically are what's your priority date for financial aid? When's this deadline? When do I get my refund check? I have this document that I have to turn in, but I don't know what it is, and I can't find it on your website. Can you send it to me? Can you tell me what it is? Those are typically the calls that we get. That's about 80%. 20% are the calls that are what we would consider tier 2 and 3 calls. Those are your in-depth calls, the students that really need a little bit more support from you and your staff. But those 80% of calls can be really dragging on your staff, answering the same question of when's my refund check coming, or what's my priority deadline, or my school code. Your staff can only answer them so many times before their voice starts to go flat and stop having that positive inflection with students. And that's something that we can then offer instead. We can be that positive voice that can answer those questions over and over without getting that demoralization that sometimes happens with those constant questions being the same. So some of the things that we can help your students and your parents understand are the types of grants and loans that you offer at your school. We can talk about the verification process. Specifically, if you grant us access to your system, we can connect either with Banner, PeopleSoft, or whatever your system is, and literally log into the student's account and tell them exactly what verification documents they're missing, what file, other documents that they're missing. We can tell them where to find it on your website. We can even stay on the phone line and direct them directly to it. If you happen to have a portal, sometimes those portals are difficult to navigate, and we spend a lot of time talking to students about how to navigate on the portal. We can work with your team to understand how your portal works and then take over that interaction and thereby teach your students how to navigate on that website, either on a one-on-one call. There's a lot of different ways that we can do that. The most important thing is we are there to help your students work through the financial aid process. When it's just that low level, trying to figure out where things are, turning documents in, things that don't necessarily require 100% of your staff interaction, we can take that over so your staff can focus on all of the important things that they have to do. Some other things that we can do are explain the expected family contribution, the cost of attendance. We can explain to students how a change in dependency might affect their cost of attendance or their expected family contribution. We can talk a lot about the application process, how to file the FAFSA, the documents that they'll need, specifically Title IV pieces. We can even talk about how to view their financial aid award letter, walk them through each one of the pieces so that they better understand it. We can also do the awarding process. So we can check to see whether or not the student has been awarded, tell the student, for example, an award letter has been generated for you, it should go out in the mail in a couple of days. So that's all the different types of support that we can offer specifically. We take performance measurements very seriously at BlackBeltHelp. And so for that piece, we do offer a questionnaire service that we can point students to after each call that they have. These are just a couple of examples of the questions that we can ask, but really we can ask any questions that you're interested in finding out about your students. So it's also a little bit of a survey option as well, just to give you an idea of how they're doing and how your students feel that we're doing. Again, I just want to reiterate that we have a pickup time of less than 60 seconds. And something I haven't told you yet, our first call resolution is 85% or more, which means the student calls 85% of the time we answer their question the first time with no further interactions needed to answer or solve that particular issue. I don't know how it is at everybody else's institutions, but at the 1-3 that I've worked at, it can sometimes be a challenge to get that first call resolution done. So to have 85%, I think is amazing. So let's talk a little bit about the implementation plan. So we typically take about 6 weeks to implement BlackBeltHelp on your campus. We start off with a real detailed scoping of what it is that you want us to look at, and that typically takes about a week. Then we go into a long-term discovery phase. This is where we're on the call with whoever it is that you designate. to be the person that's going to run this implementation process. And we're going to be on the phone with them, getting, finding out from them how it is that you want us to respond to student inquiries. If your team always answers the phone the same way, thank you for calling the University of Alaska Southeast, how can we help you? If that's how it is that your staff always picks up the phone, then we want to do the same thing. And we're going to discover that in that 5 to 6 week time period. We also have the option of doing an on-site discovery that can last 1 to 2 weeks roughly, where we send a team in to talk with your staff and meet one-on-one to get a better idea of how it is that you want us to answer the calls, one-on-one training with either your particular system and how it's set up so that we can find answers to questions for students, learn a little bit about your forms, that sort of thing. We spend a little bit of time on the infrastructure. We also set up your ticketing and incident tracking system, which we'll go into a little bit more. BlackBeltHelp has a built-in ticketing and incident tracking system so that you can get on real-time reports on how many phone calls we're taking, what those phone calls entailed, just how many calls are coming through, period. We also do agent training. Now, this is on our side. So this is where we're making sure that the team that we assemble to answer the calls for your students and your staff and your parents have all of the information that we've discovered so far. That's our training time. You can see that's about 2 weeks typically. And then we do a soft launch. This is where we work with you to figure out how much do you want us to take on so that we can really prove that we've got all of your all the discovery pieces that we needed, that we're using those effectively. So maybe to begin with, you only want us to take on your email because you can see the paper trail and you know exactly what's being sent. And then once you get really comfortable with the emails, then we start taking on some of the phone calls. And once you're happy with that, then we start doing the live chat sessions. So we have an ability to adjust our launches to your comfort zone. So I want to show you a couple of the questions that we ask during our discovery phase. And they'll come up on the screen in just a second. Here we go. So you can see just a handful of them. First, we're looking at here's your main facility, your campus locations. What time frame are you currently providing help desk support services? Once we've gone live, what are the following channels that you want us to use? For example, do you want us to do emails, phones, and chat? Do you only want us to do one of those things? Do you want us to do only one for a little bit or only during a certain amount of time? So maybe you only want us to do phones after hours, but you would like for us to do your emails 24/7. Those are all the things that we look at in that discovery phase. After that, depending on whether or not you grant us access to your computer system, which you can, we are well versed in FERPA regulations and know how all of that works. So we can go into your system and actually say, get a username for Banner, log in maybe with read-only access if that's what you want to grant us, or we can also do update access to if, say, you wanted us to leave notes in the system. All of that is described here with this questionnaire, and this is where we really find out as we move people onto the team that's going to be working with your school, how do we get them access to your system? And we'll scope out all of those things in advance so that it will be a seamless process for you as we move people onto the team to help manage the level of support you need from us. So if your call volumes start out at 600 interactions per week, great, but if suddenly it jumps to 800 interactions and we need to add more team on our side, then this will allow us to do that without having to call you and have you fill out a lot of documents and paperwork for us. Okay, at this point, we're going to go into that tracking system that I was talking to you about earlier, and I'm going to kick it back to Ron, who is an expert on the SALESFORCE ticketing system.
Great, thank you, Corinne. I think the overall walkthrough that you have done is fantastic. I think before I actually start talking about SALESFORCE and the other infrastructure, I just see a question which has been posted by one of our institutions in the chat window here, and they'd like to know from you that how do you typically handle the transition when you're setting this service up, because there can be so many challenges, and specifically, I think they're trying to kind of refer to situations where you see the internal staff feeling a little bit challenged about their job security and things like that. So I think that can be one of the key reasons and maybe the key aspects of this overall project when you have to make both of these teams work together, which is on-site and off-site. So how do institutions typically handle those situations?
I think that's a great question. I think the most important thing is that we all know that the business of financial aid is not getting easier, it's getting harder. So despite the fact that the feds promise us fewer documents, there's always more that we have to fill out, more regulations that we have to understand. The nice thing about BlackBeltHelp is it's taking that 80% of the same question off your plate and giving you and your team more time to focus on the new regulations, on processing documents, on doing what we were hired to do, which is help students navigate the financial aid process on a more one-to-one basis, helping them figure out how much loan volume should they really take out if they're going to be, say, a nurse versus how much they should take out if they're going to be a doctor, right? There's differences in that. And being able to train your team to be able to answer those questions and give them the freedom to take them off those 80% of the calls, which are the same question, and put them on those more critical thinking questions, it actually increases the value of your staff. So I wouldn't be too concerned about your staff being reduced because of your partnership with BlackBeltHelp. I think in a nutshell, you're actually going to make your team even more valuable because they're answering more questions that are much higher level, more critical thinking type questions. Beyond that, a lot of schools are looking at outsourcing things like verification because it's just become so hard. Now with BlackBeltHelp taking on those easy interactions with students that you have, you can focus more on training your entire team maybe to do verification, which as some companies charge between $10 and $15 per verification that they complete, that can save your institution a lot of money. So I think in a nutshell, schools should not be and staff should not be concerned that it's going to reduce their necessity to the school. It's really going to increase their value to the school as a whole.
Thank you, Corinne, for taking that question up. Okay, so moving on, we're going to a little bit touch upon the overall infrastructure that BlackBeltHelp uses to support your overall financial aid help desk system. And, before I actually start that again, please feel free to post your questions in the chat window of your attendee control panel. So we can make this a little more interactive and, take your questions while we are talking about all of these aspects, which can be a great tool to your extended help desk. So you have a couple of options, in fact, while you're setting this up with BlackBeltHelp. We can continue to use your existing ticketing system. So a number of institutions ask me a question that, do I really need to invest into another ticketing system if I have to utilize your service? So the answer to that is no. If you have already invested a lot of money, energy, and time into setting up, systems like CASE or HEAT or something of that sort, then we can also access those. Of course, we'll have to set up secure connections between the two locations and make sure that our counselors are able to access those and create tickets. And of course, the processes and SOPs for that can be documented in our discovery phase. However, on the other side, you also have an option of utilizing SALESFORCE, which is a cloud-based ticketing system. It's highly customizable. Of course, you can customize it up to the level of workflows, triggers, auto generation of emails, transparent reporting, and these are some of the key features of this system. Most importantly, it has 99.9% uptime because the system based in the cloud, and it is a web-based system. You can access it from anywhere, so you do not need to have a client installed on your desktop, and then only you can access it. So it's also I've also seen some of our clients accessing this from their cell phones and tablets and iPads, etc. So that's the kind of flexibility it has built in. And in addition to its main features, it has a very, very detailed reporting available in that, because it's as I said, it's a customizable software. We can even do some coding for you in the backend to make sure that you can get specific dashboards which are to be presented to your executive team. Your president may need some specific reports with reference to the financial aid inquiries which are coming in. So for an example, they would want to know how many calls have been coming in the last 2-3 months, what's the ratio of them being answered, what are the type of inquiries which are coming in, how can you make your system much more robust. So the idea is not only to just take over your workload. The idea is also to add value to your overall help desk, and that we can do by identifying a number of repetitive routine issues which can keep come in. And because of our expertise of being a centralized help desk for a number of institutions, we can also help you innovate in some of the areas where you can reduce these interactions and of course save money, but eventually the accessibility of information becomes much more faster to your global customers. So for the institutions who are offering distance learning and online learning courses, of course it's very important for you to have a 24/7 help desk set up, and the more you can automate these days, I think the better it is for your customer satisfaction. It also has a built-in knowledge base, which can, once again, we can write your specific KB articles in the system. It can be made accessible to all of our counselors. We can also provide you the licensing for accessing the system for all of your counselors and your team. You may think, okay, this may come with a lot of cost if I have to go with Salesforce, but that's not true, because we have really done a good job of negotiating very hard with Salesforce on bringing them down to a higher education level of pricing. So typically, if I have to give you a range, it costs you somewhere close to $250 to $300 per year per license. That's the kind of number, low number that I'm talking about when I talk about giving you access to our Salesforce system. And the consistency of knowledge can be, maintained on a real-time basis. We can make real-time edits to this. We can make, rules where it has to go through an approval process. There can be complete transparency in this overall system, and that's the whole benefit of using Salesforce. But I'll once again go back to the point that you always have an option of continuing to use your existing ticketing system. Now, another important aspect of this whole infrastructure is how do we handle phone calls? Before I actually move on to that, I just see a question which has been posted by one of our attendees, and it's Todd. Todd would like to know, if we are already using Salesforce, how does this integrate into the system? Okay, I think to answer that question to you, Todd, we have to basically route that through Salesforce. We can integrate this into your existing instance. So you can get your instance customized by the Salesforce team to create and match the ticketing needs and requirements of your call center, and we can still use it as your own ticketing system. The other option is that we can integrate both the systems, and we can set up a carrier pigeon method between two of these systems. So because the back end of these two systems remains the same, there can be a communication which can be set up that whenever we create a ticket, you get a notification and another ticket is created in your Salesforce instance, and vice versa. So it's a pretty common practice that we notice, and we not only have done this with Salesforce on both the sites, we have also done this with non-Salesforce incident tracking systems. I hope that answers your question. Please feel free to post a follow-up question if you have any. So I was going to just quickly touch upon the interaction management. That's one of the most important infrastructural aspects of this call center setup. How do we make sure that we are able to handle and entertain every single phone call, email, or chat interaction which is coming into our system? We use InContact, and I call InContact the Rolls-Royce of the interaction management space. It's once again a system based in the cloud. Most importantly, it has 99.9% uptime. I think in the last 3 years, I have hardly seen a notified downtime being given to us by InContact support for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and that too also in off hours because, it's like their regular maintenance work. But then even then we are able to, route the interactions to some other mode. And we've been pretty satisfied using this because it's a robust system. It can help us in tracking. It can help us in routing. It can also help us in customizing. So you may want to still use your phone line as a white label phone line. So when you forward a call to our local VID, it routes the in contact, and we can set up a white label IVR, which still says, "Welcome to Yale University's Financial Aid Help Desk. If you have a query number X, dial 1, 2, or 3." So, for example, so on and so forth. We can create, a large or extended IVR, or if you want to just keep it plain and simple, you can just simply say, "Please wait until we get you to the next available counselor." So, in nowhere in the picture your end users feel that their call is being transferred or moved to an offsite help desk. That's the beauty of this whole system. And then eventually, we record 100% of interactions in this system, and we save and store the recordings for up to 12 months. We can also provide you the access to those as and when required, and of course some of the state requirements also have legislations that we need to keep the recordings up to 18 months. So, and we have recently done that with our recent success with the Colorado Community College System, who recently awarded us for their RFP on the help desk. I think another key aspect of the system is also about the reporting. So what kind of reports do you generally need to measure the overall performance of your financial aid call center? So, I'm just going to bring Corey into this picture once again. Corey, in your experience, what do you think as a leader or the manager in your financial aid department, which were the key matrices, or I would say the numbers, which will help you evaluate the overall performance and success of your financial aid department?
Well, we were really key on how many financial aid award letters we were able to get out. And at my school, we did verification first. So first off was our verification numbers. Then we wanted to know how many award letters we were able to get out the door, how many students we helped via email and also over the phone was also really important to us. That gave us an idea of how many people we needed to work the front desk. And one of the things that we didn't have access to because we didn't have the best kind of phone logging system was how many times an individual student called us and what it is that we were sharing with them on those calls, or how many times they emailed us what we were sharing. So those are some things that we did have that were great, but some things that we wish we had that we didn't.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think just adding on to that, what you said, Corinne, when institutions come to us, they ask, can we actually track how many calls are being routed to you, how many are getting abandoned? Of course, you touched upon some key matrices and SLAs, but I think more importantly, it's also good to find out that, what level of transparency you also have in the reporting. So, as a service provider, anybody can tell you, okay, I'm handling 100 calls, and I'm answering 90% of those. But what is the visibility that you have into that kind of reporting? What BlackBeltHelp does is we publish these reports proactively to you every month, and we also assign a named account manager to you to speak to you every week. So that makes your access and that makes our availability very, very open to you, so that whenever you have any requirement or any issue or a problem, you can just pick up the phone and talk to your account manager and ask for any specific data. So, and the reporting is not only limited to the monthly report, you can also get it generated at any point of time through our system, and we can send you a dump of the report straight away. Who is going to handle my interactions, or who's going to handle my end customers? That's a very, very important question that will come to your mind when you are looking at options of outsourcing your financial aid call center support. It is very, very important to have qualified counselors sitting on the other end of the phone when your prospective students and your current students are going to call in, and they need to know every depth of your overall financial aid process and procedures and the overall system. We have trained financial aid counselors. Our hiring process is very, very typical and strict. We only entertain and hire people who have a minimum experience of 2 years plus in handling financial aid inquiries at maybe at an institution as a student worker, or maybe at any other organization. And of course, They must have a knowledge of key systems, including Banner and PeopleSoft. And, of course, there are some very, very key important checks on the skills and interpersonal things. And then, of course, their behavioral skills specifically. So it's very important to hear people out when they are on the other end of the phone, and, of course, also understand their email in depth. So that is something that you can always bring down through your experience of handling such work and such interactions. So we basically handpick our stuff. And it's not that we just pick up anybody walking on the street without having any experience. It's very important for us to have good people, because eventually they're going to talk to your prospective students, which are going to be your clients eventually. And when they get in, how do we make sure that they get up to speed to be trained on your institutional aspect? We use Moodle as our in-house training LMS. And we host all of our quizzes and trainings through Moodle. Every single counselor needs to go through an exam or a quiz, and they must score over 80% to make sure that they are ready to take interactions. We take training and recruitment as two very, very strict parameters of getting our people. If we are not satisfied with somebody in their performance in the training, we will put them through a retraining module. And if they're not satisfied, we are very, very open and transparent in letting them know that you're not qualified to do this job. And this is the kind of characteristic that we need for this specific job. Having good staff and making sure that they are trained people is very important, because you would also not put your people in front of other your customers when they're not too clear about what they have to answer. While I'm talking about training and Moodle, I saw one of the questions coming up from one of our attendees here, and the question is about how do you overall handle the customer satisfaction levels, because most of the times you'll see prospective students coming in and they may not fill up information on your customer satisfaction surveys even if you roll them out. So how do you actually measure those statistics? I think I'm going to kind of share this answer with Corinne. So Corinne, what's your viewpoint on this? That how can we measure CSAT when 50% of your customers who are going to call the financial aid help desk may be prospective and they may not be very interested in filling out the surveys?
Well, I think one of the nice things is when they do call in to BlackBeltHelp, we leave a detailed call log of what happened on that call. So whether we're connected to, BlackBeltHelp system or connecting to your system, we're leaving detailed notes about how the call went and what we talked about. So, if the student isn't interested in filling out the survey, there's only so much information you're going to be able to glean from the call notes that we have left, but it should give you a good idea if that student continues to have more than one call with the same question. They either weren't satisfied with the answer that they're receiving, or, although this never happens, they may be fishing around for a different answer, which, sometimes doesn't show up on the survey either. So, I would say that there's information that you can glean just from the call notes. And I think, a director, especially in the beginning, is going to want to be looking at a lot of those call notes to make sure that the calls are going exactly how you expect them to go, and the answers you're expecting to have given. So I would imagine that's probably how you'll do it, especially in the beginning.
Great. Yeah, I think you were spot on there, Corinne. And there can be various methods of adding to the CSAT results and surveys. Of course, you can do on-campus surveys if you want. We can also do outbound calls and campaigns to make sure that the inquiries were appropriately answered by our counselors. And we can also do outbound campaigns to find out their overall customer satisfaction levels as follow-up calls, which will essentially help us in closing their issues if it wasn't closed on the first call. And then it will also help us in ascertaining their overall customer satisfaction. I think what we should do right now is we should open the phone lines to see if anybody has any additional questions. And, of course, we can directly ask the question to me or Corinne. So I'm just going to open the phone lines. If you have any questions, feel free to ask your questions right now.
Mm-hmm.
So the phone lines are now open. Please feel free to post any of your questions here right now. We can take your questions live. Corinne is also here. Any volunteers?
I forgot you said you were going to be down here.
Yeah, they're going to take a bunch of blood tomorrow. They want to check on my blood again.
Yeah.
So
That's a good thing.
yeah, I think it was because of the depression. But so I'm going to be late coming in. I'll just go to church.
Okay, I see few people here. I think sounds familiar because I was just kind of talking to them earlier. We also have Carrie here from Yale. Carrie, if you have any specific question with reference to what we have discussed today.
I thought she was coming for the week and then close her down.
Okay, sounds like we were pretty clear in our overall explanation. Of course, we're going to follow up with you post the session to understand if there were any questions which came into your mind later on, and we can set up an exclusive one-on-one session to answer your additional questions. It's a very simple and straightforward process to inquire further about setting the service up. You can see some basic steps currently up on your screen. I think we generally prefer to set up an exclusive one-on-one session to understand about your specific requirements and your existing infrastructure. And once we have done that, then of course we can get into contract negotiation. We can talk about pricing. But I think I gave you a little bit of a view on what kind of pricing we are looking at. And of course, please make a note of the grant program that we are currently running, which is once again available to a limited number of institutions and is only available till the end of October. And once again, reminding everybody about the pricing promo, which is currently running to set up an extended financial aid help desk support. So I hope today's session was helpful for all of our attendees. Thank you so much for taking our time and attending this session. And please look out for follow-up information from us. And we would love to hear back from you. I'm currently displaying the contact details of our head of sales. These are the contact details for Vincent. So you can directly send him an email or call him to set up a session. Or if you have any follow-up questions to this session, we'll be very happy to answer those for you. Corinne, thank you so much for taking our time and sharing your best practices and lesson learned, and specifically, also answering questions from our attendees.
No problem. It was great. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Okay, great. Once again, thank you so much, all of our attendees, for being around for this session today. Feel free to contact us for any further information. This is BlackBeltHelp signing off from Cleveland, Ohio. Have a wonderful rest of the week, everyone.